You've spent 3 years, thousands of hours, and more caffeine than you care to admit for one goal. But here's the secret the textbooks won't tell you. At level 3, the math is the easy part. The hard part? The human being sitting across the table from you.
A client with a $100 million portfolio just told you he's going with his gut. He's falling into a classic cognitive trap. And the exam grader is watching your every move. Do you correct him and risk the relationship? Or do you bow to his bias and risk the portfolio? This is StudyBuddy. This isn't a lecture, it's an immersion. We're taking the most complex CFA concepts and dropping you directly into the boardroom to see if you can survive the pressure. Today's episode, the Rationality Illusion. We're dissecting behavioral finance with a case study so real, you'll forget you're studying. Introducing the Miller account.
Maya Chen walks into the CIO's office and she isn't bringing good news.
Arlo, you have a second? I've been looking at the Miller trade logs, and we have a situation.
If it's about the green energy sell-off, Maya, I'm already watching it. I assume the rebalance orders are already in.
That's the problem. Mr. Miller called the desk 10 minutes ago. He's blocked the trades. He's refusing to trim the position.
He's what? That sector is down 20%. We have a 10% collar written into his IPS. If we don't sell, we're out of compliance. Did you tell him that?
I tried. But he isn't listening to the IPS, Arlo. He's spent the last 48 hours in a confirmation bias loop. He sent me 5 different blog posts from Eco Moonshot while ignoring the actual sell-side research.
Make that 6 blogs, he just CC'd me on another one.
Julian, glad you're here. You're his primary relationship manager. Fix this. Tell him the math doesn't care about his moonshots.
I wish it were that easy, Arlo. But he's not just being stubborn. He's terrified. He told me he can't afford to be wrong on this one.
That's the hallmark of loss aversion, Julian. He's not looking at the total utility of his wealth anymore. He's anchored to that purchase price.
Exactly. He told me he doesn't lose money on tech. He's not being rational. He's trying to gamble his way back to break even.
Agreed, Julian. And here is where it gets tricky for our listeners. Arlo, do we try to moderate him by showing him the cold, hard data? Or because he's worth $100 million? Do we adapt?
Maya, you're suggesting we adapt, but the CFA curriculum is clear. Confirmation bias is a cognitive error. Cognitive errors are supposed to be moderated through better information. If we just adapt, aren't we just being lazy advisors?
It's not lazy, Arlo. It's standard of living, SLR, risk management. Yes, it's a cognitive error. But look at his wealth-to-need ratio. Mr. Miller has $100 million. His annual spending is $500,000. His SLR is practically zero.
Exactly. If he loses $5 million on this green tech bet, he still has $95 million. He can still buy the private jet. Why should I risk him firing me by lecturing him on belief perseverance?
Wait right there, Julian. That is a dangerous assumption. Just because he can afford to lose the money doesn't mean we automatically adapt. You have to look at the type of bias first. If we can moderate it, we should, because a better portfolio is always the goal. We only adapt as a last resort when the bias is emotional or when the client is so wealthy that the utility of being right exceeds the utility of the extra profit.
So, are you saying we're in the moderate quadrant or the adapt quadrant?
I'm saying we're in the gray zone. He's showing self-attribution bias. He's taking credit for the 200% gains he made in 2021 and blaming market manipulation for the current 20% drop. You can't educate away a man's ego, Arlo. Even though it's technically a cognitive error, it's rooted in his ego, making it nearly impossible to moderate in a client with this much power.
So we're dealing with an active accumulator from the Pompian BITs?
Precisely. Active accumulators are the hardest to advise. They want to be involved in every trade. They have high risk tolerance, but a controlling personality. If you try to moderate them too hard, they leave.
Fine. Let's talk portfolio construction then. If we adapt, we aren't just letting him hold a concentrated position. We need a completion portfolio.
A what?
A completion portfolio, Julian. We let him keep his green tech shares in one bucket. Mental accounting, remember? But we build the rest of his $90 million to be perfectly negatively correlated to that sector.
But that's a violation of mean variance optimization. We're deliberately building a suboptimal portfolio.
To the textbook, yes. To the client, no. We are optimizing for adherability. The best portfolio in the world is useless if the client sells it at the bottom because they don't believe in it.
The team is now pivoting from what is the bias to how do we build the portfolio around it. They're balancing the pure math of mean variance optimization against the messy reality of client adherability.
You are listening to StudyBuddy, the pioneer podcast helping you accelerate your journey toward the charter and long-term career success.
Okay, Maya, I'm looking at the numbers for the completion portfolio. If we hedge his green tech exposure with some defensive value stocks and a volatility overlay, his overall portfolio vol stays within the IPS limits, but his active risk is through the roof.
That's the price of adapting, Julian. We're trading tracking error for client peace of mind. If he sees his green stocks in a separate bucket, he feels like he's winning his bet, even if the rest of the portfolio is doing the heavy lifting.
Wait, we just missed something huge. Maya, you said he's an active accumulator. If we give him a completion portfolio that is negatively correlated to his favorite stocks, what happens when green tech finally rallies?
He'll see the rest of the portfolio lagging. Because of hindsight bias, he'll forget we were hedging him. He'll think we're incompetent for missing the rally.
He'll fire us for being too conservative during a bull market. So, adapting isn't a permanent shield. It creates a new set of behavioral risks.
Exactly. This is why the CFA Level 3 answer is rarely just do X. The answer is documentation and framing. We have to show him, in writing, that the completion portfolio is a cost of protection. We have to frame the defensive assets not as laggards, but as insurance policies.
I'm convinced. Julian, prepare the memo. We will moderate his self-attribution by showing him the attribution analysis monthly, but we will adapt to his concentrated position through the completion portfolio, only if he signs a volatility waiver.
And remind him, in the world of high net worth wealth, the biggest risk isn't the market's volatility, it's the investor's own reaction to it.
Well said. Now let's go see if he'll actually sign it.
Let's recap the mastery points from today's scenario. First, the moderate versus adapt rule. For cognitive errors like confirmation bias, try to moderate. But for emotional biases, like loss aversion, or in high-wealth scenarios, you usually have to adapt. Remember that in a CFA context, emphasize documentation. The curriculum loves the idea that if you adapt to a client's bias that violates their IPS, you must document that the client was advised of the risks and chose to proceed. Next, applying that to our case study, the Pompian BITs. We identified Mr. Miller as an active accumulator. He's high-risk, strong-willed, and difficult to advise. The secret? Adapt to his need for control, but moderate his logic. And don't forget the output. If the bias is cognitive, we prioritize education. If the bias is emotional, we prioritize accommodation. But always check the SLR first. Money changes the rules. Finally, how do we balance the risk? With a completion portfolio. This is a key Level 3 strategy. You don't force the client out of a position they love. Instead, you build the rest of the portfolio specifically to offset that concentrated risk. Behavioral finance isn't just about the math. It's about managing the human across the table. Keep practicing those Pompian bits, BITs, and we'll see you in the next episode where we tackle institutional IPPs.
That wraps up our deep dive into the Miller case. Be sure to follow the series so you don't miss our deep dive into the next study session. Thanks for listening, and happy studying. You've been listening to StudyBuddy, the pioneer podcast helping you accelerate your journey toward the charter and long-term career success.